Good day, everyone. So I'm the reporter for Chapter 4, Part 107, and my topics are Introduction, New Markets, New Perspectives, and Economic Analysis. In this chapter, it presents the general perspective and specific tools that managers use to analyze economic systems. And also, it identifies frameworks to integrate confusing and complicated interpretations. This chapter will compare and contrast the economies of developed and emerging markets, and also will try to consider the following situations. In 2007, the shortage of polycrystalline silicon, the raw materials for solar panels, threatened China's nascent solar energy industry. Then foreign companies dominated production and passed high cost onto Chinese producers. And then China began to fund their local manufacturers. An entrepreneur in China who named Zhu Gongshan raised $1 billion and built a plant, and then started operation within 15 months. And now he has been created as one of the biggest polysilicon makers. Today, China makes about a quarter of polysilicon and supplies half of the global market for finished solar power equipments. Managers study the country's economic environment to assess its development, explain its performance, and estimate its potential to make better investment choices and operating decisions. Markets, new perspectives. Managers track changes, evaluate events and trends to spot opportunities and difficulties. Therefore, managers stress test their interpretations by qualifying analysis with new perspectives, and its key viewpoints include: first, countries differ in various ways. Countries have different level of economic development, performance, and potential. For instance, in absolute terms, gross world output increases between 1970 to 2012, growing from $12 trillion to $69 trillion. Thus, globalization seemingly expanded the economy for all. Though we can observe many countries prospered, some more than others, and few not at all. Why? It is because different countries differ in their performance. Hence, the similar economic process requires anticipating new situations. Next is economic and political changes alter market circumstances. Since 1980s, companies came to enjoy the opportunities as nations adopted the principles of free market and capitalism, where the way of organizing an economy are owned by individual people, and which process are based on competitions by private businesses and not controlled by the government. When China's fast-tracking polysilicon factories and its eagerness into attractive business industries like wind turbines, solar power, and robotics changes or disrupts this natural economic process. In the West, when financial crisis hits them, it triggers new market reforms and tighter regulations. In the East, it has endorsed growing government manipulation of market activities to achieve political goals. In both worlds, changing economic policies reveals government ambition and spotlight implications for economic freedom. So managers must study the changes, both big and small, both here and there, that shape the economic events. And in the back of their minds, steps taken from Thailand, Australia, and Mexico is different from those steps taken in China, South Africa, and Brazil. The third one is connections, changes, and consequences. Globalization connects countries, and choice in one has consequence in others. So countries monitor changes in countries where improving macro trends or revised policies open markets or strengthen competitors. In figure 4.3, it shows the change in center of economic gravity in our world over these past centuries. We can see in the illustration that there's a big jump from Asia to Europe due to Industrial Revolution, and then onward to the United States in the 19th century. Since in the mid-1980s, however, the direction of shift has changed. Now, for a lot of reasons, like in the past years where solar panel companies in the United States was closed and then shifted to a joint venture with companies in the Wuhan, China. And then the center of economic gravity increasingly moved towards Asia. Since this trend shows strong sign of continuing, executive and policymakers must respond. Challenges of the comeback. The rise of emerging economies distort the traditional economic indicators, like greater competition of scarce resources raises the prices of commodities but lower the cost of the manufactured goods. More people are working worldwide but poverty is increasing. Growing economic processes improves efficiencies in the East but lessen them in the West. More than 70% of the world's growth over the next years will be on the emerging market. Managers' macroeconomic instincts that has been tested over the past decades in the West must adapt to the changing. Lastly, the choices of citizens, policymakers, and institutions. Economics is vital to citizens, policymakers, and institutions. By year 2000, the apparent triumph of free market over state-controlled economies had led many countries to launch bold liberalizations of programs. Pro-market reforms increased investments, consumption, employment, and wealth. However, global financial crisis contested the legitimacy and sustainability of the market-led change. This perfect storm, as we saw unfold, the global solar power industry changes pricing patterns, competitive relationships, and government regulations. A fuller understanding of these economic transitions helps citizens, policymakers, and institutions to make better decisions. So next up is international economic analysis. The study of economics has identified a host of objective measures that help to systematize evaluation. However, it still relies on various behavioral assumptions to interpret activity. As a result, the assessment of economic environments is more often conventional than universal. It is because of the following. So the first is system complexity. Stipulating indicators that definitely represents the country's economic performance and potential is difficult. Certainly, managers consult an ever-expanding set of indicators. The challenge is that identifying those that matters, mapping them to the market, and monitoring their performance. So next is market dynamism. In the wake of global financial crisis, some indicators that work on year 2007 were flawed by year 2009 and still flawed in year 2013. Analysis anchored in the market fundamentalism in the West poorly fits the state-sponsored capitalism at play in the East. Challenges arises on how to adjust trusted market analytics for new circumstances. The third one is market interdependence. Just like the saying, no man is an island, no country is isolated. The consequence of connections in one market influence the outcome in others. So, interdependence complicate interpretations. Adjusting analysis for actions and reactions across a broad scope of market is very difficult. Lastly is data overload. Managers are flooded with more information, raw knowledge, and clever insights than ever before. Increasing data streams from workplace chats, mails, telephones, websites, memos, and onwards complicates interpretations. And if unchecked, analysis paralysis confounds decision making. Does geography matter? Now let's talk about consequence of change in Arctic ice. So first, let me define what is economic geography. So economic geography is the study of location, distribution, and spatial organization of economic activities across the earth. Before the Panama and Suez Canal were built, shipping lanes circumnavigated the far reaches of the continent. But today, the large number of goods moving between eastern United States, northern Europe, and Asia navigate the Panama Canal. And to access the Mediterranean, Asia and southern Europe will travel through the South China Sea, cut past to Singapore, around bottom of India, and then pass through the Suez Canal. But due to global warming, one of its effects is the shrinking of ice caps in the Arctic. On the other side of the coin, it provides new and faster trade routes, markets, and resources. Yes, we can say that the melting of ice in the Arctic region indicates the worsening condition of our planet, but it is somehow a blessing in disguise, especially in the business, because it provides a new and faster shipping routes, and or shall we call them as northern roads. Then that's the end of my report. Thank you for listening and watching.